Welcome to the latest episode of Wealth Uncensored. Today, I want to talk a little bit about privacy and where you can find it. And it's going to be in a little bit of an unexpected place. Welcome to the Wealth Uncensored podcast. Straight talk about everything that impacts your wealth. In each episode, I share what I've learned through my own experience and 2 decades of helping high net worth clients structure their affairs to minimize taxes and protect their assets for the next generation. I'll also feature special guests who are experts in their own field, sharing their knowledge and experience to help you protect what's yours. I'm your host, Jimmy Sexton. Let's dive into today's show. I think as most of you are aware, over the last 10 years, many countries have implemented so-called registers of beneficial owners, right? These apply to companies. They apply in some cases to foundations, usually to foundations, and in limited cases to trusts. Essentially, what these registers of beneficial owners do is you have to put in basically everybody that's involved. These are obviously, we're talking a little bit about the general rules because each jurisdiction varies a little bit. But generally speaking, you have to input any natural person that is a 25% or more owner of the entity. And if you have tiered entities, like you have a company that owns another company that owns another company, then you have to peel back through the layers of the companies until you ultimately get to a natural person that owns 25% or more. If there is no natural person that owns 25% or more, then it's going to be generally the directors of the company that need to be reported. In the case of a foundation or a trust in the jurisdictions that have beneficial owner registers related to the trust, with a foundation, you would generally have to report the foundation council or directors, whatever they call them in that jurisdiction, the named beneficiaries, the founder, and any guardian or protector. With the trust, you'd have to identify the settlor, the trustee, the named beneficiaries, and the protector. There is one. Even if the beneficiaries aren't necessarily named, if they get a distribution, generally you would need to report them as a beneficial owner as well in the case of trusts and foundations. This information up until about 10 years ago was normally private in most jurisdictions. In a lot of jurisdictions, like the government didn't even know who these people were. That all changed for the sake of transparency. They were hoping that this was somehow going to help stop the flow of illegal funds and companies being used for aggressive tax planning and tax evasion and stuff like that. Personally, and I don't think that's made any difference, because it's not like if you're Pablo Escobar, you're going to put, Pablo Escobar owns the company, right? They're going to use a front man. In reality, all these beneficial owner registers only exist for one purpose, and that's to track wealth so it can be taxed, potentially confiscated, or penalties imposed for not doing the proper reporting and all that stuff. To make matters worse, in some countries, these registers are public, meaning that anybody can go. You just can Google it or go to the website that for the register of beneficial owners in that jurisdiction, and you can put in the person's name or the company name or whatever and find out everything you want about them. Obviously, that's a huge violation of privacy. People want to be able to conduct their financial affairs in private. They should have a right to do. And in some case, this opens up high net worth individuals to potential extortion, kidnappings, all sorts of safety concerns. Even beyond that, a lot of high net worth individuals don't even want their own kids or family members to know how much money they have or everything that they're involved in, because they want to try to raise their kids a little bit more normal, but now they can't even hide that. And it's not even really about hiding. It's just about having privacy with your financial transactions and with your how much assets you have. It's not everybody's business. Now, most jurisdictions, these registers are private and can only be accessed by law enforcement or people with a legitimate interest. But depending on the jurisdiction, this legitimate interest, that isn't a very high bar. And I don't think we've seen it yet, but one of the things that always concerns me is, even if the register is private, what happens in the case of a data leak, right? There's been all these data leaks with offshore law firms and the Paradise Papers, the Bermuda Papers, all of this stuff. It's only a matter of time until one of these private registers gets leaked, and that's obviously going to be an issue for a lot of people who are trying to maintain the privacy. Following suit with this, a few years back, the U.S. passed what's called the Corporate Transparency Act, and they put their own register of beneficial owners in place called the Beneficial Owner Information Database. For all intents and purposes, it's the same people that needed to be input in this database. And if there's any changes, I think it had to be updated within 30 days or something like this. And obviously people were furious about this because this was done on a federal level by FinCEN. This is something that most Americans were not used to having to do. That they didn't want to do it. They valued their privacy. There was several court cases. The beneficial owner register was for a little while declared unconstitutional. Then it was on appeal. Then it was back on. Then it was off again. Just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I got an update from Bloomberg notifying me that the U.S. had basically changed the rules for the beneficial owner information register and basically just abandoned it for all entities formed in the United States. That's corporations, LLCs, foundations. None of this stuff is required to register in the beneficial owner register anymore. Now, a lot of people had already registered their entities and put in the information, and that's too bad for them because the information's there now. But going forward, no new entities or any entities that haven't registered yet, there's no federal register of beneficial owners anymore. And most state, or at least a lot of states, they don't require this information either. And they don't even know who the owners or the managers of the company are in some cases. The U.S., despite the turmoil going on right now with tariffs and other things, is the privacy haven of the world right now. It's pretty much the only place where you can own companies and maintain your privacy and not have to input any information into the beneficial owner database. The only things that the U.S. is requiring now for the beneficial owner database is, let's say you have a foreign company, you have a company formed here in the UAE, for example, and it registers in a state in the U.S. to do business, then the beneficial owner registration information needs to be filled in, but only for foreign entities registering in the U.S. All U.S. entities are exempt from beneficial owner registration. So anybody looking for privacy, U.S. foundations, U.S. LLCs, or U.S. corporations, these are all great tools. And I'm sure that a lot of people are very happy to have this availability, again, that's been missing from most of the world. What I find ironic about all of this is over the last 20, 30 years, it's actually the U.S. that's been pushing all these transparency, anti-money laundering rules on the rest of the world. It's the reason we have such problems even doing things like banking outside the United States, because the U.S. has pushed such tough AML laws that we now have this situation where it's almost impossible to get bank accounts. Compliance is a nightmare. Everything takes months. You have to produce all kinds of documents, constantly these updates. Everything has to be transparent. This was all a push by the U.S. to stop money laundering. The interesting thing is the U.S. didn't sign up to the U.S. didn't implement any of this stuff themselves. They haven't implemented the global tax deal. They're not a signatory to CRS. Now, the only sort of big country or big economy, Western democracy, the only major country that doesn't have a beneficial owner register now. Banking's easier in the U.S. Getting onboarded with lawyers and accountants is a matter of showing a driver's license or a passport normally. Now we have all this privacy offered by them getting rid of the beneficial owner register. I think the U.S. has basically cornered the market on privacy and ease of banking and everything else by pushing all of these laws on anybody else that they haven't implemented themselves. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about privacy today, let you know where you can find it. You know, if anybody's interested in setting up an entity in the U.S., we can help with that. Just shoot us an email or contact us through the website. But I just wanted to let people know, because this is relatively new information, that the U.S. has gotten rid of their register of beneficial owners, or at least exempted all entities formed in the United States. The U.S. is now probably the biggest haven for privacy in terms of trusts, foundations, LLCs, companies, stuff like that. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you found this an interesting episode. Stay tuned for more on future episodes. Thanks.
Thank you for joining me on Wealth Uncensored, where we help you minimize taxes and protect your wealth for the next generation. If you like our show, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at info@esquiregroup.com. And don't forget to visit Esquire Group's website for more information on how we can help you secure your wealth. I'll be dropping knowledge again next week. Don't forget to join us.